Hi everyone, my name is Brian Puffolks. I'm an immigration attorney with Puffolks Law Firm. Puffolks Law Firm is a full-service immigration law firm serving immigrants throughout the 50 states as well as in many parts of the globe. In a prior video, I discussed how Senate Democrats are looking to pass a multi-trillion-dollar budget reconciliation bill, including key immigration law policy provisions, which would include a path to citizenship for millions of undocumented immigrants. There has been a recent and very exciting development in these efforts, which I'm going to share with you today in this video. But before we get started, please take a moment to like this video and also to subscribe to the channel so that you can get updates. So let's get started. With little to no hope of getting an immigration law passed through the normal bipartisan channels, the Senate Democrats have been keen in on the budget reconciliation process, which has two fundamental benefits. One, you can get the budget bill passed, which would include immigration law provisions, without any Republican support. And the second important reason is that it prevents Senate Republicans from filibustering. In the prior video, I discussed how getting a budget reconciliation bill passed is still a very tough road to hoe because there are major divisions in terms of funding priorities and policy priorities between Democrats, between moderates and progressives. However, as I mentioned earlier, there have been some key developments recently. Just in the past couple of days, it appears that conservative Democrats and progressive Democrats have aligned to support the broad framework of a budget reconciliation bill. While nothing is guaranteed, that's an important critical step in getting the budget bill eventually passed and getting the immigration law provisions included, approved, and passed. In these reports in the last couple of days, it was mentioned that Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer, who is a centrist, House Leader Nancy Pelosi, who's a progressive, the Budget Committee Chair Bernie Sanders, who's a progressive, the Judiciary Committee Chair Jerry Nadler, who's a progressive, and Joe Manchin from West Virginia, a centrist senator, have all agreed on the broad outlines of a budget bill. They agree that the cap in terms of funding will be a $3.5 trillion bill. And very importantly, they all agree that to the immigration law framework, that millions of dollars, approximately $150 billion, will be spent and allocated for a path for immigrants, undocumented immigrants, to become eventually citizens of the United States. So this is huge. This is the first time in approximately 40 years that we have this level of cooperation and momentum within the Democratic Party without the need for Republican support, which means that there is a chance that we might actually see a new immigration law very soon in this country. Bloomberg News recently reported, quote, Biden agenda gains Senate ground with big hurdles remaining. And the New York Times reported in their headline, Democrats roll out $3.5 trillion budget to fulfill Biden's broad agenda. Bernie Sanders stated, and I quote, let's be clear, let's really be clear. What we're talking about is the most consequential piece of legislation passed since the 1930s. And of course, while there's no guarantee that all of the Democrats will line up behind a unified budget resolution bill, we do have currently support from key leaders across the Democratic political spectrum. So this really is the best chance we've had in over 40 years to get an immigration law passed in this country. The Democrats are working feverishly hard to get an agreement of a budget bill done by this summer. They're thinking late summer to maybe early fall. So I would say the timetable that we're looking at for an agreement among the Democrats would be maybe August, September 2021. And once the senators have agreement on a budget bill, the broad framework of a budget bill, they can't get it approved until they get a sign off by the Senate Parliamentarian, Elizabeth McDonough. The Parliamentarian is an unelected, nonpartisan position whose job it is to interpret Senate chamber rules. And while it's mostly true that a year ago, most people did not know who Elizabeth McDonough is, she's being referred by many people as the most consequential person in Washington. It's going to be Elizabeth McDonough who decides whether the budget reconciliation bill complies with what's known as the Byrd rule, which is named after former Senator Robert Byrd. The Byrd rule essentially dictates that any policies that are packed into a budget bill, one, has to have a budgetary impact, and two, the impact that it does have cannot be, quote unquote, merely incidental. Now, if you study Elizabeth McDonough's decisions in the past, I think it's really hard or impossible to predict how she's going to decide whether or not the budget reconciliation that she gets presented with in the near future passes legal muster. In 2017, when the Republicans were trying to cut federal funding for Planned Parenthood in their efforts to repeal Obamacare, McDonough ruled that those provisions violated the Byrd rule. More recently, in February of 2021, McDonough ruled that the Democrats' efforts to increase the federal minimum wage could not be included in the pandemic relief bill. And most recently, in April of 2021, McDonough ruled very importantly that the Democrats could have two reconciliation bills in 2021, which broke away from the normal tradition and the normal interpretation that only one reconciliation bill was allowed per year. So it's really impossible to determine how she's going to rule on this future reconciliation bill, assuming that we get there. A little background on Elizabeth McDonough, to the extent that it may shed some light on who she is and her personality. She is the sixth person to serve as Senate parliamentarian and the first woman to serve in that title. She graduated from George Washington undergrad and she went on to Vermont Law School. McDonough is a career civil servant and professional. She's worked for many, many years in the US Senate in different capacities, and she became Senate parliamentarian in July of 2017. The bottom line is she's respected across the political aisle, from conservative Republicans to progressive Democrats. And the future of an immigration law in this country may very well be in her hands. This takes us to the end of the video. If you enjoyed the content, please take a moment to like this video and also subscribe to the channel, which will ensure that you get updates on any developments on this pressing matter or any matters in immigration law. And also, please take a moment to comment below and let me know if there are topics that you'd like me to cover, and I will, of course, try my best to do that. Thank you.